and welcome. Today we are going to talk about one of the most important Czech grammar. Ahoj a vítejte. Dnes budeme mluvit o jedné z nejtěžších a nejdůležitějších částí gramatiky českého jazyka. It's verb aspect, perfective and imperfective verbs. Bude to slovesný vid, dokonavá a nedokonavá slovesa. In Czech, verbs don't just show when the action happens. They also show how the action is viewed, as a process or as a completed result. V češtině slovesa neukazují jen, kdy se ten děj odehrává. Ukazují také, jak na tu činnost nahlížíme. Jako na proces nebo jako na hotový výsledek. Understanding aspect will help you sound more natural when speaking Czech. Porozumění vedu vám pomůže mluvit přirozeněji v češtině. In this video, we will start with the basics. First of all, what is aspect? V tomto videu začneme se základy, jako co je to slovesný vid. How it works in the present and the past tense. Jak funguje v přítomnosti a v minulosti. And finally, how to practice using it in real conversations. A nakonec, jak používat slovesný vid v reálných situacích a v konverzacích. Don't worry if this feels confusing at first. Everybody feels the same way about aspects. They are kind of pain in the earth. Nebojte se, pokud se vám to zdá ze začátku složité. Všichni si myslí o vidovém aspektu to samé. Je to zkrátka otrava. But I will try to explain it to you step by step and with lots of examples. Ale já se vám pokusím slovesný vid vysvětlit krok za krokem a dát vám spoustu příkladů. So let's get started. Tak pojďme na to. Dokonavá a nedokonavá slovesa. Perfective and imperfective verbs. Let's start with what is aspect. Začneme s vysvětlením toho, co to vlastně vid je. Slovesný vid. So, verbal aspect is very different from what you know as grammatical tense. Vidový aspekt je, nebo vid, je velice rozdílný od toho, co znáte jako gramatické časy. Čas minulosti, budoucnosti, přítomnosti. So tense is something that tells me when the action happens, is happening, will happen, have happened, has happened, and so on. Gramatický čas mi říká, když se něco stalo, jestli se to stalo v minulosti, jestli se to právě teď děje, jestli je to běžná praxe, je to zvyk, anebo jestli se to bude dít v budoucnosti. So, if we summarize it, aspect is about whether an action is seen as something that can be finished or cannot be finished. Takže shrňme si to. Vid ukazuje, jestli je děj chápán jako dokončitelný nebo ne. Now, as we go through this document, you will start understanding little by little. And so we have two different aspects. Máme dva různé vidy. We have imperfective and perfective. So imperfective is describing actions that are ongoing or possibly they are repetitive or just opened. We don't care about the end of this action. That's not why we are saying the sentence. Nedokonavý vid se používá u aktivit, které se opakují nebo které probíhají právě teď. Ale každopádně nás nezajímá konec té aktivity. Není to pro nás důležité. Například I am writing a letter. Píšu dopis. So that's describing the process. It's not really finished action. It's like I am writing a letter right now. Or this Czech sentence could be also translated as I write letter. For example, I write it every week, I write it once a year, and so on. Také bych mohla přeložit větu píšu dopis v průběhovém nebo v přítomném prostém čase do angličtiny. Protože celý ten proces prostě neskončil, anebo neočekávám, že vůbec někdy skončí. Druhý příklad. Každý den čtu noviny. I read the newspaper every day. This is a repetitive action. Alright, so it's like every day I read newspaper. So this one is definitely present simple in English because of the každý den, which marks present simple in English. But, ale, perfective aspect is describing action that is complete or seen as a single finished event, even in the future because we are planning to finish that activity. Dokonavý vid je děj, který je hotový, nebo je viděn jako jeden dokončený celek, nebo děj, který bude dokončený v budoucnosti. Například, for example, napíšu dopis. I will write a letter. Napíšu dopis. And I have the plan of ending this activity. I am going to finish it. Přečtu noviny. I will read the newspaper from the beginning till the end. Okay? From the first page till the last page. Přečtu noviny. So, Czech verbs can actually tell us much more than English verbs can tell us, because I am talking about if it's going to be action that can be finished, action that could be finished in the future or that I am planning to finish, or if it's something maybe happening again and again, or if it's an action that doesn't have any end. We cannot mark some point in the future where we are going to finish that activity. Maybe it's because it's a tradition, maybe it's because it's a habit, and maybe it's because it's just right now happening. Like I am working at this school and it's happening in these maybe 10 years, 20 years, or maybe just 1 year. But I don't know when it's going to end, if it's going to end one day, and so on. So it's very different from the tenses. I have one important information for you. Perfective verbs do not exist in the present tense. To znamená, že dokonavá slovesa neexistují v přítomném čase. That means that simply the present conjugation form of this verb is actually already talking about the future. It means and refers to the future. So it doesn't actually have, let's say, present nor future, because these two are the same. It's one single form of this verb. Let's see examples. It will all become much clearer once you have seen more examples. First, I will tell you when to use perfective verbs and then when to use imperfective verbs. Jako první vám vysvětlím, kdy používat dokonavá slovesa a potom, kdy používat nedokonavá slovesa. Use perfective verbs with finished actions, results and completed activities. For example, čtu tu knihu, ale nerozumím jí. Porozumíš jí, až ji přečteš. So this is a dialogue of two people. Person A is saying, I am reading this book, but I don't understand it. And the person B is just like, obviously, you will get it. You are going to understand the book if you finish reading it till the end. And finish reading book or paragraph or a newspaper is the verb přečíst. So až ji přečteš. You will understand once you finish reading it. Porozumíš and přečteš are two perfective verbs because they talk about finished actions. In this case, it's conjugated in present tense. You can see the present tense ending, ish, suffix ish, and esh for these two verbs, which are endings in present tense. But I am actually referring to the future. So I have translated it into English as future tense. So that's what I meant about perfective verbs do not exist in present. Second case of possible usage of perfective verbs is sequential actions. To jsou následné děje. When one action follows another, Czech usually uses perfective verbs. Pokud máme nějakou posloupnost událostí, v češtině používáme dokonavá slovesa. Zítra ráno vstanu, udělám kávu a usmažím vajíčka. Tomorrow in the morning I will get up, make coffee and fry eggs. That's a sequence, one after another. Another example, další příklad. Otevřu láhev a napiju se vína. I will open the bottle and drink some wine. You see, it's a sequence. One action goes after the other. Třetí případ, the third case when we are going to use dokonavá, perfective verbs, instantaneous actions. Dám si lososa, I'll have salmon. Jdu do obchodu, I'm going to the store. So this sentence, jdu do obchodu, is saying like, right now I have decided that I am about to go to the store. I am talking about this instance, you know? Not that I am going to the store every Thursday at 7 p.m. No, that would be imperfective verb because that's a habit. It's a repetitive action. But here I'm just saying like, now I am going. In English, you have present simple and present continuous. I go versus I am going. But in Czech, we don't have these two tenses. But we have aspects. And many people think about aspects as something that's similar to the tenses because we are helping ourselves to express present continuous and present simple through aspects. But as we keep on going in the examples, you will see that it's not really the same thing. Tense and aspect is not the same thing. Slovesný čas a vid není ta samá věc. Jsou to dvě odlišné věci. A uvědomíte si to čím dál více, jak se budeme v tomto dokumentu posouvat dál a dál. Další příklad. Another example. Beginning of an action. Začátek děje. Přečetla si dopis a rozplakala se. She read a letter and started crying. Rozplakala se. This marks the beginning of some action, which I have to translate into English with the word start. Something has just started or she started doing something. But in Czech we have perfective verbs that can help us communicating that idea of beginning of action. Then fifth, pátý příklad. Completed in specific time. Dokončeno za určitý čas. When we want to say that we finished something, doing something, we completed something in 1 week, 1 month, 1 hour, or that we will complete it in certain amount of time, we have to use perfective verbs because, as I was saying, it's about finished actions or actions that we mean to finish. Za rok se naučil česky. So in the literal translation, it would be like, in a year he learned Czech. But, you know, that's probably not correct English. So it took him a year to learn Czech. Za rok se naučil česky. You see, I am talking about how long it took him to learn Czech. Another help is when you learn aspectual markers, because that can really help you to recognize which aspect you are supposed to use. Pokud se naučíte tyto slova, která nějakým způsobem označují dokonavý vid, také vám to velice pomůže při určování vidu. Například včera, yesterday, před týdnem, před měsícem, před rokem, a week, a month, a year ago, naposledy, the last time, dnes ráno, dnes večer, this morning, this evening, minulý týden, minulý měsíc, minulý rok, last week, last month, last year. Hned, okamžitě, right away, immediately. Najednou, suddenly, all of a sudden. Potom pak, then, after that, in a sequence, as I was describing for perfective verbs. Konečně, finally, už, already, teprve, only now, not until now, teprve, just yet, and so on, possible translations. Za chvíli, za hodinu, za rok, in a moment, in an hour, in a year. Až, once, when something is done. Tento rok, when it's about completed results. For example, tento rok napíšu knihu. So I have a goal for this year. I will finish writing a book. As you can see, all these words are outlining all that I have mentioned before, the ways how we are using perfective aspect. And here I have a few more examples, příklady. Včera jsem napsal dopis. Yesterday I wrote a letter. So that means that I said, I started writing, I continued writing, and I finished writing a letter. Před týdnem jsme viděli zajímavý film. A week ago we saw an interesting movie, because that's a specific occasion in the past. We saw interesting movie a week ago, last week. Dnes ráno jsem si udělal kávu. This morning I made coffee. If I want to say that I make coffee every morning, it's not going to be udělal, but dělám. So this is example in past tense, but even if I would try to say this one in future or present or past, you know that perfective verbs do not actually have difference between future and present, but imperfective verbs do have the difference between future, past, and present. So it doesn't matter in which tense I am actually going to make this sentence. If I'm talking about this morning, I am talking about specific occasion, one instance in, you have to imagine the timeline. So if I know where to mark that situation, that action, that activity, on the timeline, it should be perfective verb. Najednou se otevřely dveře. Suddenly the door opened. Najednou out of sudden. Alright? So it just started opening and it finished opening. There is no way that I will stop the door halfway through being opened. So otevřely se dveře. Už jsem tu knihu přečetl. I have already finished that book. I finished reading that book. In Czech, I don't have to say that I finished reading the book because that's the meaning of přečetl. Tento rok uvařím 80% jídel doma. This year I will cook 80% of meals at home. Okay, I have that goal. I am setting myself for a very successful and healthy year. Now let's check out the imperfective verbs. Teď se podíváme na nedokonavá slovesa a kdy používáme nedokonavá slovesa. Za prvé, first of all, action in progress. This is also the reason why many people confuse aspect with tense. Deník Anny Frankové. Čtu deník Anny Frankové. I am reading the diary of Anna Frank. It's ongoing. It's action in progress, so I have to translate it as present continuous. Because maybe I am not reading it right now in this very moment, but I might be on the page 50 of the book, and I will keep on reading it because I like the book. So, čtu deník Anny Frankové. If I wanted to say that I am planning to finish reading it the next week, I could say za týden přečtu deník Anny Frankové. So I'm setting myself to finish reading it in a week. But the progress of the activity is čtu, imperfective verb. Za druhé, opakované děje. As second way of using imperfective verbs, we have here repeated or habitual actions. Například, každé ráno vstávám v 8, dělám kávu a smažím vajíčka. So, with the perfective verbs, we had exact same sentence, but there it was sequence of activities. First I do this, then I do that, and last but not least, it's this activity. But in here I am talking about my habits, morning routine. So it must be in imperfective verb. It's an imperfective aspect. Every morning I get up at 8, make coffee and fry eggs. Jednou týdně chodím do parku. I go to park once a week. Jednou means once a week. And there I am already talking about frequency. How often something happens. I go to park once a week. So, aspectual markers for imperfective verbs, just like we had with perfective verbs. Teď se podíváme na nějaká slovíčka, která označují nedokonavý vid, stejně jako jsme to udělali s dokonavými slovíčky, s dokonavým videm. Máme tady jak často, how often, because again, frequency. If we can talk about frequency, it's imperfective aspect. Obvykle, usually, často, often, vždycky, always. Každý den, každý týden, každý měsíc, každý rok. Every day, every week, every month, every year. Každé ráno, každé odpoledne, každý večer. Every morning, every afternoon, every evening. Někdy, sometimes. Pořád, stále, constantly, still. Znovu a znovu, again and again. Několikrát denně, several times a day. Jednou za, dvakrát za, třikrát za, talking about the frequency, once, twice, 3 times per, týden, měsíc, rok. Týden, měsíc, rok would be week, month or year. Tady mám pro vás další příklady. Obvykle vstávám v 7 hodin. I usually get up at 7 a.m. Každý den chodím do práce pěšky. Every day I walk to work. Vždycky piju kávu po obědě. I always drink coffee after lunch. Jak často čteš knihy? How often do you read books? 2krát týdně cvičím jógu. I practice yoga twice a week. And now about the verbs themselves. How do we create aspectual pairs? Teď se podíváme na ty slovesa, protože se musíme vysvětlit, jak se vytváří vidové dvojce. Existuje spousta způsobů, jak vytvořit dokonavé sloveso z nedokonavého slovesa. There are several ways how to form the perfective verbs from the imperfective verb. Unfortunately, you will just have to learn the perfective and imperfective verb as a pair by heart, because we can divide them into these groups that I will talk about right now, but at the end of the day, you just have to know what prefix to use, how to change the root, and so on. There's no general rule, nothing that I can tell you as a tip, but I believe that if you learn it in categories, it will be easier for you to memorize them, because our brain really loves this sort of systematic categorization, and it helps us to understand things. At least some brains work like that. If your brain doesn't work like that, that's fine. I'm just going to give you a list of perfective, imperfective pairs of verbs. Vařit, uvařit. Psát, napsat. Číst, přečíst. Dělat, udělat. Učit se, naučit se. Dívat se, podívat se. So these are some examples of perfective verbs created by adding a prefix. Toto jsou příklady sloves, která byla vytvořená pomocí předpony. There are also verbs that have many possible prefixes and they are slightly changing the meaning, which is another complicated and sort of confusing topic for another video. So let me know if you want this explained to detail. For example, vařit, uvařit. Uvařit would be cook through. Převařit is boil again. Zavařit is preserve in jars. Dovařit is finish cooking. And so on. I'm sure that you have seen some other examples like napsat, dopsat, obsat, přepsat, zapsat, vypsat. Sometimes phrasal verbs help me in English to be able to translate these verbs as clearly and as precisely as possible. But sometimes English just cannot communicate these little nuances. So you just have to understand them from the context. Read, read, read. That's my advice. Read and listen to lots of Czech. Second way how to create perfective verbs from imperfective is by changing the ending. Můžeme také vytvořit dokonavá slovesa změnou koncovky nedokonavých sloves. Například kupovat, koupit, prodávat, prodat, and so on. Then we have irregular forms, nepravidelné tvary, where you just can't add to it anything. You will change the ending, you will change the root, so they are truly irregular forms, like yeast and sneezed, which I'm sure you have seen somewhere already, to eat and to eat up. And completely different words. These are the worst, probably. Chodit, jít. You would never tell that both of these verbs mean to go. Brát and vzít, both of them mean to take. Jezdit and jet, both of them mean to go by vehicle. And I have to mention also that there are some verbs that don't have aspectual pair. Taky bych měla zmínit, že existují nějaká slovesa bez vědového protějšku. Moc jich není, ale existují. There are not many, but there are some. And we have some of them right here. Chtít, for example, to want. If you think about what I have just told you about the difference between perfective and imperfective, how could I start wanting something, stop wanting something, or be wanting something? It's just not possible. Just like with many other modal verbs. Mít rád, to like. So these verbs don't have aspectual pairs. If you are not sure, if you are reading a text and there are many verbs and you are trying to learn them and understand them, and you don't know if that's the perfective or imperfective form, I recommend Lingia, which is online dictionary, and I am going to click on it to show you where in the dictionary you can actually find if the verb is perfective or imperfective. So I have already looked for the verb číst, and here it says ned. That means nedokonavé, imperfective. All right? It's a very nice dictionary. It explains quite well what the verb is expressing. You can also change the combination of languages. Anglicko, český, English and Czech, but there are Arabic and Czech, Chinese and Czech, Croatian and Czech, and so on. German, Spanish, Russian, and many other languages. So you just look up the word and you will see if it's nedokonavé, imperfective, or dokonavé, perfective. Let's go back to our material. Past tense usage. So as I have mentioned, it's all the same. The general meaning of perfective and imperfective are used in the same way in present, past, and future. Let's see a few more examples for použití minulého času. Nedokonavý minulý čas říká, co probíhalo, co se opakovalo, nebo nebylo dokončeno. A nedokonavý, the imperfective past says what was happening, what was repetitively happening, or what was unfinished. Včera jsem četl knihu. I was reading a book yesterday. Perfective past, dokonavý minulý čas, one time finished action, jednorázový dokončený děj. Včera jsem přečetl knihu. I finished the book yesterday. Future tense usage, použití budoucího času. For imperfective verbs, use auxiliary verb být in future tense. So that's budu, budeš. Bude, budeme, budete, budou plus infinitive of the main verb. So budu psát. I will be writing. And as I have mentioned before, napíšu is the perfective verb in present and in future. And what are the common pitfalls? Where do usually students make mistakes? They are commonly overusing prefixes. So not every prefix simply means that the verb is perfective. So careful about that. Wrong aspect for repeated actions. If you do something every day, it's imperfective verb. And forgetting perfective verbs don't have true present tense. So if you want to express something with perfective verb in present tense or in future tense, it's going to be exactly the same sentence. And the most important part of the entire explanation are exercises, of course. Důležitá část tady procesu pochopení toho, kdy použít dokonavá a nedokonavá slovesa, jsou cvičení. Musíte cvičit. So this document does include many different exercises and the answers upside down. Do not be tempted to see the answers right away before even trying. And this document is available on Patreon, so you can download it for $3 and try the exercises yourself and then let me know how it went. Tak se mějte moc krásně, so have a beautiful evening, afternoon, or whenever you are watching it. And I will look forward to preparing some more documents for you. Mějte se krásně, ahoj!